Welcome to the On TRAC podcast, the show where we bring you all the latest and juiciest developments from the OriginTrail ecosystem and the verifiable internet for AI that the OriginTrail technology crucially enables. I'm your host, Jonathan, and in this episode, we break down the significance of the Metcalfe Convergence Phase and discover how economic incentives, AI agents, and trusted knowledge converge to unlock exponential network effects. We also get a very special demo from OriginTrail co-founder Branimir, who demonstrates a cool new functionality and use case. So be sure to stick around until the end. I was joined by, of course, Branimir, as well as OriginTrail's two other co-founders, Tomaž and Žiga, as well as Trace Labs General Manager Jurij. This episode was recorded live on August 29, and let's get right into it. So we have a very exciting chat for everyone today, and we've only got an hour to do it, to get through everything. So I say we just jump right into it. But before we get to just the meat of the conversation, it's been roughly 3 months, I think, since we last talked in May, live from New York. And so I wanted to ask everybody, just how's everyone doing? How have the last 3 months been?
Quiet, I guess. It's been crazy busy, man. But it's been good. Yeah, time flies. I can't believe it's been 3 months since we've had live. But yeah, good to be back and good to see everyone.
Žiga, Jurij, how are you doing? How's life?
Not too bad. Been very, as Tomaž said, busy but exciting busy. We've been doing a lot of exciting things. A lot of it we'll talk about today. So, but yeah, summer went. I don't know where summer went, actually. It's over now, but I have a feeling it never started. So,
anyhow, I just came in from Switzerland and I had a little bit of a flight delay. And then I had to stay in the city of Malaga and had to rebook my rental car. So it was a little bit of a rough start staying here. Yeah, it's been a very, very exciting last 3 months. Kicking off a few exciting things already in New York that have now overgrown the let's say initial ambition in terms of how big the opportunities are and how big the network potential has been kind of coming together with all the partners that have joined in the recent 3 months following quite a successful New York event. And we've been involved with quite a few partners, both old and new, since then. And quite interestingly, I believe the title of our previous podcast was When Networks Start to Speak, when networks start to talk, together with Bob Metcalfe. And Bob Metcalfe, as you all know famously, he's also the Turing Award winner, and he's also the formulator of the law of network effects, besides other very important things he has achieved in his life. And why is this law very important to us, and why does it apply to OriginTrail is because basically the knowledge is valuable, and we all know that Decentralized Knowledge Graph has exploded in terms of the capacity and scalability since the launch of V8. And in many ways, it has basically tackled the issues of blockchains and decentralization in terms of the scalability or scaling the data exchange. And the demonstrated scalability that we have gotten from it versus, let's say, 1 year ago, I believe right now sits at 10,000x in terms of, how scalable the knowledge publishing can be. And we can conclude that since the introduction of the V8, the scalability, which was previously limited by blockchains, have definitely been tackled. Why is that important for the law of network effects and for further driving the value is because we have quite a few new exciting builders and internet platforms building now the DKG that has achieved scalability that can and will demonstrate the value of the network effects of adding more, let's say, knowledge assets or millions and dozens of millions new knowledge assets next to what has already been published. And in that way, all platforms, all individuals also participating in this network will be able to see the value go up tremendously. And then, of course, with the new roadmap in the making, and with the Metcalfe Convergence Phase, there are quite a few exciting things which bring together important elements from AI world, such as AI agents, with the decentralized knowledge graph world, more specifically with the nodes, which fall into two categories, core nodes and edge nodes. And we will later on show something quite exciting as to how very quickly decentralized physical infrastructure can be set up by the individuals. And all of this stems from our, let's say, most recent work with internet platforms that also want to scale their usage, not just to their, let's say, peer-to-peer networks of other internet platforms, but also to the commoners like us, so everyday users of the internet. So overall, pretty exciting. And what we're going to cover today is a few aspects of the next development phase called Metcalfe Convergence. We're very happy to have Professor Bob Metcalfe also be joining us physically at the next DKG conference. We're going to share more updates as to where this is going to take place. We had to do some adjustments due to personal reasons, planning initially to do this year's DKG conference also in Amsterdam, but we'll make sure that it's going to be even more exciting, although it's not going to be taking place in Amsterdam this year. But yeah, we're going to share more details in the following days and weeks about that as well. So yeah, overall pretty exciting. Just came in from Switzerland, and it was really interesting to meet the partners and the Umanitek team that is operating. And you've heard about Umanitek, as Umanitek also referenced back to New York. We helped launch the first product named Umanitek Guardian Agent, which is now also gaining the shape as the 2.0 version that is going to be useful, besides bringing value to internet platforms, also to individuals. So many things converging: AI with OriginTrail nodes, neural AI with symbolic AI, and we're gonna also look from afar, as to what kind of challenges the artificial intelligence or AI agents are facing due to the lack of basically knowledge. And knowledge is we are in the business of knowledge as ecosystem creators, and we see that we can really help amplify and bring the value to artificial intelligence and reliability that other systems cannot. And also one of the speakers at our previous conference in Amsterdam, Gary Marcus, covers that pretty nicely, and we can dwell deeper into the problems and the aspects that he's shedding light on, and how the AI can be improved. More so, generative AI can be improved by using symbolic AI, so the engine that also OriginTrail is powering. Overarchingly, it's been very successful, especially since, given that we're hearing reports and reading about the statistics, such as 90% of generative AI pilots are now failing in companies that are pushing for implementations of AI. And in our world, basically the picture is quite the opposite. Vast majority, if not over 90% of all projects that have gained traction using OriginTrail Decentralized Knowledge Graph are now not just successfully existing, but even expanding their scope. And this is all thanks to OriginTrail being not just what others are, so using LLM, but basically driving LLM's reliability through this neurosymbolic co-location of approaches. So yeah, perhaps a mouthful introduction into how I feel about the past 2 months, and I'm excited to chat. And thank you again, Jonathan, for having us. I know it's your last episode with us, and we will likely meet in some other venues in the future.
Oh yeah. Just because it's the last episode, I'll be hosting the podcast does not mean it is my last episode of being a member of the OriginTrail community. Let's put it that way. And I'm looking forward to DKG Con. I'm going to try to make it. Looking forward to whenever the dates and location drop. You've been hinting at a location change. I'm hoping it is in Brooklyn, so I can just walk to it. But either way, I'll be doing my best to be there, and I hope to see you guys and the rest of the OriginTrail community there. Is there anything, Jurij and Brana, that you wanted to add very quickly before we jump into the convergence phase? Maybe a quick highlight for you?
Just a quick hi to everybody, and looking forward to chatting some more. But yeah, it's been a very busy summer. We've been building coding like crazy. Some of it will show today, some of it will be revealed relatively soon, but I'm really excited because it's incredibly powerful, and it's anyways, you'll see it. So stick around for the rest of the show.
Okay. Guess that's everyone. Okay, so let's jump right into this then. So we are here to explore the future of OriginTrail and the Metcalfe Convergence Phase, which I think we briefly touched upon a little bit back in May when we had Dr. Metcalfe here as in New York, when we were in person with Dr. Metcalfe. But now that we are getting closer to actually entering in this phase, and maybe we are in this phase already, you guys can educate me, but can you give me a high-level overview of the Metcalfe Convergence Phase, what it entails, and then what exactly does it mean to be converging? Like, what is converging, and what does that mean in the context of the DKG?
Convergence is the next stage of the OriginTrail development and really the growth of the entire ecosystem. It is going to converge several different things. It always helps to come back to the problem. One that Žiga mentioned previously is the current AI and its challenges in really understanding things. So what I really like, the way I can even show it, let me share my screen. If you guys have seen this is Gary Marcus showing the level of understanding of AI. I'm not sure if you can see my screen, but basically it's an AI-generated image of a person, and you might notice the names of different muscles don't really make sense. Like this is an ear and it's trapezius, which shows, as Gary says, that ChatGPT doesn't know its ass from its elbow. And it's an inherent problem of today's dominant AI, which is this neural AI, basically. So it's a really good guesser. It kind of knows that on the image there should be a trapezius, right? But it's not precise. So, and that's the biggest reason why a lot of these 90% plus of these attempts to implement it practically fail. It is because without other components, if you just go and slap an LLM into a system, of course this won't yield positive results. So OriginTrail here has obviously a different approach. We've been advocating for many years now. We've been saying this all along, that LLMs are not enough, and actually what you really need is a combination of approaches. This neural approach, which is very practical and useful. I'm not saying ChatGPT is not useful. It's a very powerful tool, and any LLM is really, but it's not enough. And everybody's been overly focusing on them, hyping them up a little bit too much, which tends to happen, obviously. But without a good data source, without a really proper knowledge, this doesn't allow you to implement AI in a reliable way. Like you can do something, but it's going to be very unreliable, and therefore, sometimes it's funny, like in this image. Sometimes it's not funny. If the AI makes a mistake and, I don't know, somewhere in Switzerland, the train goes off tracks because it hallucinated, you cannot afford that, and therefore obviously doesn't make sense. When we talk about convergence, we talk about converging different technologies together. And in the sense of OriginTrail, it's always been about converging the neural AI and the symbolic AI. Symbolic AI is this rule-based branch of AI, this right brain AI that is non-hallucinatory. It's not very creative, but it's amazing at following rules, and so you can codify rules such as math, physics, or just rules of a game like chess, and it won't make any mistakes. But it's not so creative. It cannot write Shakespeare like LLMs can, which are really your kind of counterpart left brain in this synergy of LLMs, the neural and knowledge graphs in our world as symbolic. And DKG itself is in this convergence that is going to converge both these technologies together, but also converging the way this infrastructure is implemented. So the solution obviously cannot be centralized. So when we go with neural and symbolic, if there's one owner of the knowledge, that is not the optimal solution, because that one entity has control over whatever that AI is going to do. So obviously we want to do it in a decentralized way, which is the approach of OriginTrail since 2018. And converging in V8, we have seen a new paradigm of expanding the network with the notion of edge nodes. So we have the core nodes, which are really the core of the network, the nodes in the OriginTrail network, hosting the graph, and then edge nodes, which have a capability to run privacy-preserving DKG software on the edge devices, laptops, phones, and others. And in this convergence, in the Metcalfe convergence phase, we really see the convergence of the core and the edge nodes both getting much stronger capabilities in this neural symbolic sense. So in a very, very near future, we will see a new version of the edge node coming out that will have many more capabilities, especially around publishing. We also see another big improvement coming, which is converging AI agents with nodes, effectively co-locating agents with DKG nodes, both core and edge nodes, converging these two paradigms. Previously, the nodes you could consider more as an infrastructural, even passive element. Now they become active. And in this convergence of the ability to create an agentic node is going to make the DKG autonomous. You might have seen the notion of autonomous decentralized knowledge graph, autonomous knowledge mining before. And it's in the convergence phase of the roadmap. This is coming to life and coming to life fast. So when we see the new edge nodes having more capability, basically becoming agents, having the ability to become major contributors to the value of the network. And the value of the network comes from not just having the network and hosting it, but most importantly, what is the network hosting? And the value of the network really in our world is the value of the knowledge in the DKG. So what kind of useful information can be used by this neurosymbolic AI, and in what way? So really the key thing here is to enable as much as possible the collection or automated collection even of quality knowledge assets in the DKG. We have in the previous period crossed the limit. It's not really a limit. It's quite a big number. It used to be something that people didn't believe we could achieve, but we're over 1.25 billion knowledge assets being registered in the DKG today. So as Žiga said, we have solved pretty much the blockchain scalability issues. If you go a little bit back into history, you'll see that we couldn't do that before because of the scale. Now it's actually the scaling happens really on the knowledge graph level, but that's for some other point in discussion. Ultimately, in this convergence phase, like I said, all of a sudden the DKG gets incredibly more powerful at generating high quality, valuable knowledge. And with that, it's going to be autonomous with this agentic capability. Yet again, the agentic capability converging neural and symbolic AI. So not having the problem of LLMs just hallucinating and not being applicable across enterprises. Actually, quite on the contrary, it's being, as we speak, applied in new areas that it hasn't been applied before, in very environments that are very demanding in terms of reliability. And that they don't really allow for much room for error, which means that OriginTrail is, as we speak, being provenly validating this approach, and this approach will obviously be scaling across throughout the convergence phase. So a quick start of, I guess, the intro of the convergence, but it's going to be incredibly exciting because all of a sudden, all of the nodes will be possible to turn into agents very quickly with this co-location. And not just that, it's going to be easy to connect, or I'd rather say converge, with all other emerging AI through protocols like MCP. So the new edge node is actually being created with MCP first in mind. So MCP is the core protocol basically for interaction with the DKG in this Metcalfe convergence phase. So that opens up very, very easy integrations with all kinds of existing, not just LLMs, but also AI-enabled agents. So think of any agent being able to easily plug in query, read the DKG, use that knowledge, but also to add knowledge to it. So expect more and more edge-enabled, deep-in devices that are going to contribute knowledge now that we have solved the scaling problems and we're able to properly apply all these technologies together. I'm incredibly excited because I tend to compare this to ChatGPT, for example. Coming back to Gary's post, I mean, ChatGPT is great, but DKG can be much better and much greater. If we populate it, and we will, as a community, with some very high quality knowledge, all of a sudden it has abilities that ChatGPT doesn't. So as we grow, as we pass, thank you, Dimitri, 1.38 billion knowledge assets and billions more to come, with this, we will have tools, we will have a system that is better than ChatGPT. It will have much less, if any, hallucination. It will have the ability to validate that information that comes in, both from a provenance perspective, but also from a perspective of reasoning, rule-based reasoning, not just hallucinating. And it will be able to do actually much more because it's empowered by so many different devices and systems that are plugged into it because of this decentralized approach. So it's going to be incredibly exciting. And I'm looking forward to showing you a little bit of that in a bit. But since I'm already speaking for about 10 minutes here, I want to let the others have a go, or perhaps Jonathan move on to the next, I guess, question or point. But I'll open it up for anybody else who wants to add anything on what I just introduced here.
Well, you just answered actually one of our audience questions, which was, what is the unique selling point of the DKG compared to ChatGPT? So I think that was a very good answer there. And we did have another one that maybe you could answer real quickly, which I think is relevant, which was that if the 1 billion knowledge assets was the previous target, kind of publicized target for the number of knowledge assets in the DKG, and we have now surpassed that, is there a new target for the number of knowledge assets that you guys are shooting for, or is it at this point just sky's the limit, as high as you can go?
Perhaps the question now is, we got the quantities, right? And when you get the quantities, you want to work on the quality of knowledge assets. And we want to make sure that we can measure the value of knowledge assets also in terms of, how well and how the propensity of each new, let's say, platform or new user, new use case actually increases the existing knowledge, and then with the new knowledge, how the overall value grows. And since we're within Web3, one of the elements or one of the parts within our ecosystem that epitomizes the value of knowledge asset is the tokenomics of it all. And during this race towards 1 billion knowledge assets and more, so on, there have been quite a few learnings as to how we can use the tokenomics to incentivize and then also to amplify the value of knowledge assets. And first off, be able to somehow measure what's the value of knowledge assets. So just compared to, let's say, the journey within the Genesis Metcalfe phase, before we introduced some of the elements within the tokenomics, such as staking, that also mobilized a lot of value in terms of the TRAC token that got committed towards certain nodes producing knowledge and then also giving them rewards. So basically bringing community on board to, let's say, knowledge creation that stems from the underlying knowledge. So going back to the question of quantity, right now the name of the game is to really understand the quality and how this translates into the value that is captured by the tokenomics. And this should somehow reflect the overall value of the underlying knowledge, therefore quality. So let's say that we're now, and I'm going to do finger in the air estimation, we're at, let's say, 120 or 30 million TRAC token activated, for the utility purposes from the publishing side, from also the future development side, and also from the, of course, the staking side and so on. The ambition is to grow this number further. And how do we grow that number? Well, we need to value the knowledge that's been published, and we need to somehow increase. We see increases in terms of the propensity of new users coming in, new internet platforms being willing to commit. Let's say just one such example, perhaps is Umanitek, where we've seen that we have had let's say 7 million of the digital assets, or let's say the online assets from an internet platform or a cluster of internet platform that came into pipeline in the beginning, and then shortly after, when this pipeline was made we introduced, or the company building the network introduced that pipeline to other internet platforms. From 7 came 50 million, and from 50 million additional, let's say, knowledge assets, or even more so, because it's not just about a single content piece. Of course, there's an expectation that this propensity for other companies, for other platforms to join will likely drive this number further up. So this is how kind of the quality is measured, and the way this gets translated into the value of tokenomics, obviously, is as more knowledge assets are published, the publishing factor, of course, goes up on each particular node, publishing in the network and creating the value. And then at some point, when publishing factor is, let's say, insanely high, up at a certain level, there is, of course, a tendency for no new nodes, new publishing nodes to come into the system. And we see that as well. And what this triggers is the new nodes, especially the ones for publishing, they accommodate for more track to be staked on those nodes, because rewards also go up in the cumulative terms. Now, of course, not everything is without, let's say, some certain challenges, because as you build an innovative network such as the DKG, you cannot anticipate all the, let's say, challenges and how the actors will behave. And what we have noticed is that there are some actors in the network that perhaps would not be able to compete in terms of, being the publisher, but they do try to compete in terms of, amplifying their power, and it's called node power and node health. They will try to amplify their power by decreasing, let's say, the ask price, which is, also the learning that no one anticipated before. And now we're taking this learning and, through the RFC that the community is helping us shape. We're figuring out, and very soon we're going to introduce an update that helps price the knowledge asset more, let's say, correctly. And this, more correctly priced knowledge assets, some people call it the race to the bottom, so protection against the race to the bottom, is certainly going to be, one element in making sure that all the knowledge assets are more properly valued. And then going back again to your question, how many knowledge assets, the number of knowledge assets is important, but what is even more important is that we can value the knowledge assets through tokenomics and putting the right, let's say, modifications to the V8 network in place, such as, preventing the slippage of the price of publishing to the bottom and so on, which, is now being introduced and so on. Besides, of course, having a very exciting and growing pipeline of publishers and platforms and new products, improving the seamlessness of publishing and creating the so-called decentralized physical infrastructure across edge nodes. And we're also introducing the next generation of edge nodes together at the webinar with Microsoft. And that's going to be followed with some other events and technical modifications that are going to help us, let's say, increase the numbers in terms of the value that is being captured and explained through the tokenomics, and in turn through the value of the knowledge assets in the DKG. A little bit more like, all over the room answer, but I think it's very important to understand that quantity is not always quality, and the quality is the name of the game, especially now, until we enter the convergence phase officially, because then the value captured should be much, much more obvious as we introduce the modifications mentioned.
Yeah, coming from media, I definitely understand the quality over quantity conversation and debate. And that just because you have a bunch of, in this case, let's say knowledge assets or whatever the case is, doesn't always mean that they are useful, and that the focus is on making sure that you don't want like a network that's just vaporware or like filled with useless junk data. You want it to bring real value, and for that you need actually valuable knowledge assets. So yeah, that makes sense. That's the better.
Yeah, the knowledge assets are valuable, but sometimes the value is not recognized. I guess that's the point. So you need to align the mechanism of accounting for the number of knowledge assets and the size and so on with the the tokenomics part. And that's the trickier part, because it's not just a centralized application, it's the community It's the actors that have, let's say, different expectations. They have different also interests, and bringing about the code basically that could somehow align the value between the numerous knowledge assets, the billions of knowledge assets, as expressed by the tokenomics. So that's kind of the $1 million question. How do you get there? And we get there through experimentations, obviously, and we have kind of narrowed down the, let's say, the list of challenges and modifications that need to be brought about. And yeah, it's quite exciting, and I think the community also shares the excitement about these new modifications, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm. So I want to go back to sort of the topics that Brana had brought up in the convergence phase. And one of the big, it seems like, focal points of this is this idea of things being done autonomously through like AI agents and autonomous knowledge mining. And I saw something about autonomous decentralized knowledge interfacing. Not 100% sure what that means. Maybe one of you can explain that. But why is this autonomous part like significant? Why is this like such a big leap forward and something that you're, I guess, making sure is a big part of this convergence phase?
Yeah, maybe I can take a stab at that one. So Brana and then Žiga were talking about convergence before, right? And we said one of the things that are converging are the nodes, the edge nodes, core nodes with agents also. The lines between the three components being a bit more blurred, agents coexisting with the nodes, and that's where this autonomy really then plays in, right? Agents actually being able to create, and they're being able to create much higher and higher quality knowledge on the DKG, right? That's really where the combination of large language models and knowledge graph really comes to light, right? As the LLMs become better, knowledge graphs that are created, so the knowledge becomes better, and it can be autonomously populating DKG with richer, more valuable knowledge assets, right? And why this is so relevant is because agents can do this autonomously a lot faster at a lot larger scale as humans do, which is not to say that humans are not going to be populating the knowledge graph. By all means, actually, with the new node and the new tools, this will become easier than ever. And Branimir will show something cool later. But the point being that this autonomous knowledge mining and autonomous growth of the knowledge graph is then valuable not only because it just creates new knowledge, but it may be a lot faster at creating new hypotheses when we're talking about scientific research. It might be faster at identifying holes in, for example, in a supply chain because it has all of the knowledge available. It can analyze, produce new ones, create alerts, all of these types of things. So this autonomy and the convergence of agents and nodes is really kind of two sides of the same coin. And it's a big factor of how quickly the knowledge graph can grow and how quickly we can add valuable knowledge to the DKG. And one, for example, exciting case that we've kind of briefly touched but not completely revealed yet was this case, for example, around clinical knowledge that we're actually working on, and it will hopefully in the next days actually be able to reveal a lot more around that. But it's a great example of agents being actually autonomously being able to create that knowledge from existing sources, but also identify things that drive new knowledge creation that is new, that is not existing somewhere. But that's where this reasoning and the powers of the knowledge graph really comes into play. So it's really about all of these things coming together and enabling growth through humans adding knowledge, agents adding knowledge. We're really creating a knowledge graph, a DKG that is not only large in the sense of it's now 1.38 billion. That's great, right? We'll continue growing for sure, but also becomes much more varied in a sense of what type of knowledge is on there and the quality of the knowledge that exists. And as this increases and increases, and it has been increasing for years, and now it's going to increase even more, so does the utility of the DKG and the agent that live on it, right? So does the value that they can bring to people, to businesses, to individuals, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of my semi-structured brain dump of where this plays in.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. That definitely helps. I think that feeds into my next question, which is, I'm going to read a passage here from the Founders Weekly Update that was just sent out, which I think aligns with this idea of agentic nodes and collective agentic memory. So you write, one of you writes, I don't know which founder it comes from, in the Metcalfe Convergence Phase, OriginTrail DKG nodes will actively host and collaborate with AI agents. DKG V8 is envisioned as a collective agentic memory, a shared verifiable memory bank that AI agents can both read from and contribute to. With MCP, AI agents can now co-locate with nodes, creating an agent-node symbiosis. No longer passive infrastructure, OriginTrail nodes become active AI participants. So, I don't know. When I read this, it just like kind of blew my mind a little bit, trying to think of like nodes with like AI agents that are kind of co-locating and living in the nodes. And it just seems like this super cool, almost like sci-fi future-esque thing. So I'm not sure if this is related to the updated edge node.
Yeah.
If this is the same thing or not. Okay. So can you translate for my smooth brain what this all means and how this is helping push forward the convergence phase?
Yeah. So before it was, the saying went that if we want to gather the global intelligence, we need to have all people to participate in the creation of this global intelligence. And now in this new world, it's not just humans, it's also artificial intelligence. And now we're at the intersection of, as humanity. We could have AI agents that are at all not supported by the structured, let's say, collective intelligence that already sits on the DKG. And then we'll have, rogue agents basically doing things that you don't want them to do in your name. Or we can have agents not just flourishing on the decentralized knowledge graph, ingesting knowledge that is verifiable and so on, but also co-creating this autonomous knowledge graph through, their experience. So basically, having people be involved in this agentic world by making sure that the right intentions are driving the behavior of the agents, but at the same time that agents, as they evolve, they also create structured and verifiable knowledge so that the humans can understand their behavior, agentic behavior, and that the behavior is actually in line with human expectations. And this is coming to fruition already within the beginning of this year with the integration of the ELIZA plugin, and now with more, let's say, enterprise approaches through MCP. This is made available to pretty much, all of the use cases across the board, from the one you already mentioned, the scientific part or the clinical trials, that not everything has been revealed, but obviously there's a lot of autonomous learning there that is going to be enshrined in the decentralized knowledge graph, or perhaps something that we more imminently care about. So how can you protect your image online? So basically making sure that your image is also your copyright, which is being basically pushed forward by some other internet platforms, including Umanitek, and with them other partners that are bringing in vast amounts of knowledge assets representing video content and so on, the newly joined technical companies even. And then next to that, also individuals being able to run seamlessly plugins. And perhaps that's also a nice segue to what Branimir has shown. Basically here, it's the job not only of internet platforms that already bring in initially dozens of millions of representative content pieces, from images to video and so on. That, of course, increases propensity for other platforms to join, and they are joining, but also for everyday participants in the web, like yourself, us, can run a plugin that is connected to edge nodes, and in that way run your own personal agent to go through social media, identify possible infringements of copyright. And these possible infringements of copyrights might not only concern you using such a plugin, using such an agent, but they might even be creating a valuable, let's say, traces or valuable signals to the network to discover whether someone else's image has been infringed upon or copyright or so on. So imagine, just old OriginTrail or old DKG where people participated and companies, and it grew quite fast. Now, in this day and age, you're going to have agents basically crawling the web and creating knowledge assets as they go with a staggering speed. So this is, made possible with the new development phase, and co-locating basically nodes and agents allows us to achieve that.
I want to make sure that we have time for this demo as well. I have not gotten the secret sauce about what the demo is going to be. So I will be just as surprised and hopefully excited as everybody else in the community. Are we going to be seeing this new edge node? Are we going to be... I know you've been hinting at something related to revealing something at this upcoming Microsoft webinar. Yeah, what are we going to be seeing, and why is it going to blow my mind?
Yeah, so why don't we just go ahead and see it? And what we're going to see at the Microsoft webinar is going to be seen soon. Let's keep that for the webinar. Save a little bit excitement for later. But yeah, I'll show something which is practical implementation of what we just talked about in many different ways. And I'll just share my screen. It's not a huge, it's going to look like a small thing. So it's not huge in size, but it's actually huge in implications. So you guys now see this thing that we are using to stream, and you should see my Twitter feed, which is, I guess, full of who knows what. So, but now you might notice this little thing here in the corner, this extension, which actually, as I scroll, if you can see, there's a number here, 5,500-ish, that is actually growing. That number represents actually the number of collected knowledge entries, in this case tweets, in a DKG edge node that is running in my browser right now. So effectively what you're seeing is live collection of information on a machine. And here, if I scroll a bit more, you can see it, like we can see this number go up, like people like to say. And obviously, so now it takes basically what it sees in the browser. Here we see it as like visual, but it actually goes and parses the code and creates a knowledge asset pipeline for publishing. So basically all of the tweets that my browser has seen, and if I keep scrolling, it's going to keep seeing more. As you can see, that number is growing. They get packaged into a knowledge graph. And in this node, I'll actually show you. So it's not just scraping, it's actually creating the pipeline. So I have a query. For example, I'll take, this is a Sparkle query. For those of you who've never seen one, this is a knowledge graph query, basically. And I'm going to be asking it about what are, in this case, if you can look at the query, who are the authors and what's the count of tweets that I have collected like this. And here I can see, for example, this is the author is OriginTrail. It has 235 tweets. Obviously, OriginTrail pops up in my feed a lot. Then there's Rainmaker. That's the guy, Massimo. That's a really cool account. Then something called Sci-Fi. I'm not sure what that is. Žiga and other things. Gary Marcus. Basically showing the tweet count. So what you're seeing here is really the first time ever we have had a DKG node, an edge node in this case, which is also with a co-located agent doing an autonomous task. And this autonomous task is collection of knowledge that then it converts into knowledge assets and establishes a pipeline for publishing into the DKG. And it does that without any need for me to even touch it. All I need to do as a regular person who doesn't know anything about knowledge graphs, might not know much about OriginTrail at all. You don't have to have a skill to do this, by the way. This is just a demonstration here that I can run queries that are actually run here in the extension. What's actually happening is that it's collecting all of these nodes, all of these knowledge assets, establishes a pipeline, and then can move on with the publishing. And as I'm going to now turn it off, this just keeps on happening, as you can see by the count here. So imagine thousands, hundreds of thousands. What is this? It's some AI generated video. Well, great. It's a great segue. Imagine hundreds of thousands of people collecting real stuff that their browsers see on the internet as they scroll and use it without having to think about what's going on. And the agent in their browser creating a neurosymbolic entry in the DKG with all the metadata that it can find, with the provenance of who submitted it, and then having the ability to use that together in the graph. So autonomously, we're creating knowledge that then anybody can plug into. Somebody might think, okay, well, that's, tweets everybody can see. Well, actually, it's not that easy to capture what's going on Twitter. If you want to access the Twitter data feed, it's quite closed, actually. And their APIs are limited, very expensive, actually. In this case, and I'm illustrating with Twitter, it doesn't have to be Twitter, it can be anything. You're able to actually see and collectively populate the DKG with what's going on in real time in the network without having to rely on some centralized API, without having to, resort to the algorithm. There's also cool things you could do here. For example, imagine tapping into that and seeing all the tag tweets, and this was a conversation that popped up at the previous DKG Con. Imagine you had, like, in this extension, let's say, an ability to tune the algorithm of Twitter for you. So let's say I want to see, let's say, more politics and less music, for example. I could tone down music and amp up politics, and this extension could actually filter my feed based on what it sees in the DKG, and therefore influence the experience of me using Twitter directly, having myself have more control of what I see versus, the algorithm being quietly programming and hypnotizing me in a way, and, giving me all kinds of potentially weird or fake or problematic content. Here it's easy to see that it's fake, but imagine what's going to happen with the internet very soon when majority of this content is going to be AI generated. That internet theory is still very valid. And in that case, the ability of us as humanity to take control rather than have a couple of big central companies control us is a very, very big thing. And this is a one way to do it. And so this is basically a mine. You can see it now, it's reconnecting to the DKG. And it's loading and it keeps scraping and collecting this information. This is information that I already loaded as a user, so it's already there. There's no additional activity that happens with Twitter. It's just using what's in here in my browser, and it's collecting that and assembling this pipeline for publishing. So think of now hundreds of thousands of people being able to install this extension and become publishers. And then think of nodes being able to tap into that publishing by enabling others to, for example, use your core node and enabling publishing for them. And again, this is just one example of how we could do this and how it's applicable in just one case. It doesn't have to be Twitter. This is, like I said, an example. It's not an extension you can download just yet. It's more of a showcase of what a DKG Edge node agent can do. This convergent agent that runs both the Edge node and the agent together. And again, the extension is just one environment. Think phones, think laptops, think you running an Edge node in the background, just as you run Spotify in the background, maybe playing music while you do some work. And that node is quietly helping you. And at the same time, you are helping others by contributing knowledge and publishing quality input. Now, what is quality? Again, that also is a question of different domains. That's where pair nets come a lot into the play. So pair nets are going to be a very important piece into this puzzle, but without going too technical about it, pair nets enable essentially incentivization, which means that imagine all the possibilities of how users can be incentivized to do the right thing. And this is just one of the potential right things. And when I say users, I mean the agent. So instead of having small number of nodes that are currently publishing, small in relative terms, think of publishers becoming dominant in the network, basically. Thousands and hopefully hundreds of thousands of them soon, chunking in high quality information that gets reconciled, checked in different pair nets, structured in knowledge graphs, and being immediately usable as neurosymbolic AI. So yeah, that's the quick Edge node agent demo that is an illustration of what's to come. But yes, more to come, and I'll keep scrolling and scraping here meanwhile.
Yeah, I have so many thoughts on that demo that you just showed. The first thing I'll say is that it's super cool to see this come to fruition because I was there for at least part of the conversation at DKGCon where this was brought up. I don't know the people that were in the conversation. I'll just keep it vague, I guess. I don't know if they want to be identified or not. But I do think it is a very cool example of how kind of these community ideas, these gatherings like DKGCon, how they can lead to a spark that then 6 months later or whatever, 7 months later, becomes an actual demonstrable use case for the DKG that we are now sharing on this live stream. And that to me is a super cool representation, I think, of the power of the OriginTrail community, which to be fair, I'm not in a lot of other communities. I think this is the most interesting project in crypto, to be quite frank. So I spent most of my time on this one. So I don't know how it works, but it does feel fairly unique and special that like this off the cuff conversation over a couple of beers about this is a cool idea, like now becomes an actual demonstrable use case for the DKG. The second thing I think is particularly cool is the simplicity of use of a browser extension, which like there's all these debates about why haven't we seen mass adoption in crypto yet and why the average person can't use crypto and what's stopping them. And one of the things that people always point to is the user experience and the technical steps that have been required historically for much of crypto's history in order to participate in this ecosystem. And so the idea of like a browser plugin that you just download to your browser, you click, you probably have to do a couple of, I'm assuming, probably somewhat basic steps to set it up, but it's not super complicated. And then you're off. You're on the DKG. You're generating value. And I think when you expand the network with these edge nodes that we've been talking about for a while now, it opens up all of these super exciting opportunities for, again, just like regular people, my mom and my dad to like run an edge node on their fridge or whatever. I mean, I don't know how close we are to that, but run an edge node on their phone that, I don't know, does some cool thing to help them keep track of their work emails. And that knowledge is then crunched through an AI chatbot and it's all private. Like, I feel like the use cases become almost endless and just filled with imagination and possibilities when you kind of take this next step. And for me, this demonstration was very helpful to visualize like what that actually means and where this convergence phase can take us and take kind of the everyday person as well. I want to be conscious of time here. We're at the hour. There were a few other audience questions that maybe we can get to with some quick answers, and then I'll let, if anybody else has any last minute thoughts they want to add as well, we can do that. But somebody was asking, maybe Tomaž, maybe you can take this one, if there will be any opportunities for the OriginTrail community to get involved with Umanitek. And based on what Žiga was saying, that it sounds like there might be with this idea of like this additional browser extension or this plugin that he was hinting at, where they can kind of use the Umanitek network, if I'm understanding this correctly, to kind of do their own search for potential social media content misuse. But will there be any opportunities for people to get more involved in the Umanitek mission?
Yeah, I mean, Umanitek's, we say that core flywheel is really started to spin quite fast, especially if we look at the perspective of the type, just the quantity of content that is getting in the pipeline to be added to Umanitek Guardian network. So Umanitek Guardian is the product of Umanitek that they launched. And obviously at launch, it was announced that ALO will be contributing over 7 million of their verified safe content pieces. That has since now started to advance with other partnerships, including the International Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and just the latest one as well, Identifier. And all of that just amplifies the network growth as well. And as it was hinted as well, the point isn't just to have internet platforms be the engine of growth and the participants in the Umanitek Guardian network, both from the perspective of adding their signal of what is good or bad content to the network and to the DKG, but also from the perspective of protecting themselves against being exposed to bad content. These capabilities are now intended really to be available to individuals as well. So that would mean that you are able to, when you said, how can my mom or my dad get involved in using the DKG? Well, they could do that via Umanitek and using the Guardian to protect themselves against their likeness or image to appear somewhere where they do not want it to. And equally so, in similar fashion as Branimir was doing with the extension, being able to contribute to the Guardian network with their signal about what they saw, what type of content they interfaced on the internet, just as they were using it. So definitely there's going to be a lot of touch points in getting involved in Umanitek. There's details that will be communicated quite soon to that you'll kind of have a bit of a larger picture of the whole product as well as the rollout. But rest assured, there's going to be plenty of way to be involved in both the Umanitek vision as well as partake in its success. Of course, keeping DKG at the core there.
Very nice. I think we can fit one more audience question in, which I like this one here. So there are all these new performance capabilities of the V8 line of releases, the V8 point, etc. So you've been doing a lot of hinting. So maybe you can mention this. I know you can't name names, but like this DeSci thing that you've been hinting at, which I think is what Jurij was talking about earlier. And then there's talk of this major, one of the world's largest collectors of IP. I'm probably not saying that right. Shared content library. That's what it was, to fight harm in the AI era. So are there any other organizations or maybe initiatives on the horizon that are going to be making use of these new expanded performance capabilities? So in the exact words of this question asker, how close are we to seeing the floodgates open?
Okay, yeah, maybe I do a couple of sentences on that one. So there are, aside from these two that we mentioned, obviously, there is additional things that we, as Trace Labs, have been working on, and hopefully also to be shared soon. And not only with new organizations, but also, with the new capabilities of V8 and the new nodes, also significantly expanding existing things that have been running live for years, right? So there's a lot of opportunity on both, let's say, from an enterprise perspective, right, on the new cases and expanding existing ones. But I think what we talked about a lot today, bringing the technology also to consumers, to everyday users, this is really where we have traditionally not tapped into as much. And I think the growth there has enormous potential, of course, alongside with the growth in organization/enterprise sector. So all of these also, this is also in a sort of convergence, right? These the kind of boundaries between these two things are also blending, because knowledge that is mined by individuals, let's say consumers, like with a plugin that Branimir, for example, showed, is useful also to organizations. And useful to Umanitek, might be useful to some other company that is working in a similar field to use it for a different purpose. Similar to also with the pharmaceutical clinical trial data that we were talking about, the organization or a group of organizations that are doing this, they use it for a specific purpose. There might be others that are use it for something else. So this pool of knowledge, this convergence of use, is also coming in from that angle, and potential for growth is pretty much in all of these directions that we covered and partially did also not cover, because we could sit here for hours, right?
I think the concept of floodgates is always a contextual one, historical context. I think the floodgates as an anticipation was first introduced when we had 100 knowledge assets published on a daily basis, right? And then we got to, I don't know how many millions a day, correct?
Yeah, we had 15 million today.
We had 15 million a day. So since teasing the floodgates open when it was 100 a day, We have 15 million a day. When we get to, I expect in the future, to 100 million a day, there's going to be a question when floodgates, meaning so.
It's a moving target. It's a moving target.
Floodgates is always a moving target. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't seem we'll run out though. I think if we look at the trend of the amount of content, especially or data that gets generated, like until next year, we'll, in the period of last 2 years plus the year ahead, we'll create another whole database that's the same size than anything before 2023. So it's exponential. This thing is crazy, right? And DKG is there to keep track and like creating anchors and creating trust. And that's also why convergence is important, because when we started, you have to start at the core, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. Think through connectivity into any facet of where data resides today. The public internet is but a drop, Also, what LLMs are trained on is but a drop, and it's very low quality one as well, right? Compared to all the good stuff that's underneath the sea level, where really with the edge nodes we can now go. And that's why this is important as a convergence point, is because it connects together, it enhances reliability, and it opens up use cases on the edge that were never previously possible. So the floodgates are going to keep on, I guess, getting bigger in that sense, because that's just the trajectory. So, but from the perspective of what the DKG brings as a value to the world, it's never ending.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a great place to wrap this conversation up. Although I do want to give just one more chance, if any of you have any very last minute final thoughts you wanted to share before we close it out today.
I guess I'll go first because I have to jump off.
Sure.
It was great chatting. Suffice to say, even with the last comment I made, I'm very excited for the convergence phase. I'm excited to see people get involved more so than they did before. Getting involved in the DKG as a contributor, not only as someone who's a kind of passing recipient of what's happening on the network. It's becoming easier than ever. It's becoming something that's expected in a way, because that's how we're growing together the value of the DKG. And yeah, excuses are becoming less and less in terms of being able to create awesome use cases, being able to build with tools that are very familiar to large groups of people, and to get to any device basically that we would like to, because yeah, now convergence is making that possible. So it was a great conversation. Thanks, Bruno, for doing the demo. That was cool. Very nice showcase of just one possibility of what you can do with the edge node, and super looking forward to the next things.
Anybody else have anything they want to add?
Perhaps I'll use BRX's question. How are non-crypto people going to get track to publish data? So that's like an oxymoron. How do you get someone who's not using crypto to use crypto to publish data? And I believe it's more so through the extension that the bigger platforms are going to utilize to invite others to basically publish, but not be in contact directly with crypto, but still be using basically TRAC as an underlying cost structure to enable publishing. So it's becoming increasingly easy to do that. And Branimir showed a very small part of it. And it's going to be exciting to see the small part being part of a more, let's say, retail-oriented solution as a part of a much, let's say, larger cluster of internet companies collaborating and building a network of, let's say, signals on the web, on the DKG. Thank you all for listening in. It was exciting. And there are a few more updates that we're going to share in the coming weeks, along with the technical modifications and so on. So make sure to stay on track. Do not blink an eye. Do not miss on any of the updates.
I just wanted to add one thing that we might not have covered as much, but it's, to me at least personally, very exciting around the edge node, that it's bringing the technology through extensions like this to everyday users to become extremely easy to use without even thinking about it. But also how easy it is to actually grab the edge node and if you're a builder, and do something exciting with it now. That's also one of the things that we'll showcase more in the future. So in the Microsoft webinar in future as the node gets released. But personally, right, I've been able to take this thing. I'm not an engineer. I haven't even done any coding in my life before. And I have built like a couple of very like relevant prototypes in a matter of days. So I think that's kind of also really exciting. So all the builders out there who are listening, stay in touch. And once it's released, I'm really looking forward to seeing, which direction people take it. Or directions. I'm sure it will go many ways.
Yeah, it's going to be really exciting. And part of it is going to be shown on the Microsoft webinar that we're doing together. So September 8th, be sure to join us because there will be a bunch of cool stuff to be seen there as well. And yeah, thanks everybody for joining. It was very good questions, and we're looking forward to building the collective neural symbolic AI together in the largest knowledge base in the world through OriginTrail. So looking forward to chatting again.
I want to say thank you to everybody as well. This is my last episode as host of the On TRAC podcast. I'm sure it will continue to go on in some form without my presence, but it's been an absolute pleasure to be on this journey with you guys over the last year and a half and see how the OriginTrail protocol has grown, all these new initiatives you've done, but also just on a interpersonal level to make like new friends with you guys. I think that's probably been the most rewarding element of this, and to be better connected and make friends with so many of the community members as well. And yeah, so I wish the On TRAC podcast luck moving forward. I wish OriginTrail luck moving forward. I'm not going to be disappearing from the Telegram chat. Hopefully I'll be seeing everybody at DKGCon whenever that happens this year. But yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody and just say that it's been an absolute blessing to be a part of this cool thing that we built here.
Thank you, Jonathan. I'm sure we're gonna see you on track with within some other project, and you're still staying within a vicinity. So with CoinMarketCap and perhaps our paths cross in some other form of collaboration. And much love to you, and much love to you for contributing such a great content and great energy into this continuous project of ours.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I'll still be in crypto and not going anywhere. My DMs are still open. So yeah, feel free to reach out anytime to anybody who's listening. Well, most people who are listening, no spammers.
Slide in from time to time, yeah.
Thanks again, Jonathan. I'll make an agent send you a DM every 2 days from the browser.
I'm going to scrape it from my edge node.
Yeah, just goes and likes your music, every 2 days. Just
don't get me banned from Spotify.
Good point.
Botting my streams with DKG agents.
Oh my God, Spotify. I heard recently what they do is they create ghost artists, and they would create AI-generated remixes of real artist music to squeeze out artists from the platform so they can pay less. Not a world I want to live in where there's less artists or no artists. Something we have to do about that with the DKG, of course.
There you go. Yeah.
More to be talked than that.
Someone pick that idea up and run with it.
For sure.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Trace on, stay on track, and you will be able to catch this episode on Spotify, Apple Podcast, your favorite podcast platform. Subscribe to OriginTrail on all social media platforms. And yeah, I'll see you around.
See you. Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks, everyone.
This has been On TRAC, brought to you by OriginTrail. If you like what you heard, consider giving the show a follow and leaving a 5-star review. You can keep up to date with OriginTrail on Twitter/X at OriginTrail. That's Origin_Trail. And you can follow me, your host, at MadDopeMadic. That's MadDopeMadic. Until next episode, trace on and stay on track.